The South African Democratic Teachers Union says it will not allow any of its members to report for duty on Monday because the Department of Basic Education has failed to meet the minimum requirements to ensure level 4 safety during COVID-19 pandemic. Personal protective equipment has not been procured for office-based personnel, school-based educators and education support personnel. The disinfecting of schools has also not been completed. Joining us on the line is Nomusa Cembi, SADTU Spokesperson, to perhaps divulge a little bit more. Nomusa, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's just look at some of the concerns coming forth ahead of teachers returning and perhaps why you're ordering them not to. Walk us through them.
Good morning and good morning to your viewers. SADTU won't allow any of her members to return to schools tomorrow because we feel that we'll be putting their lives in danger, since the department has done very little to ensure that our schools are safe. The disinfection of schools and offices has not even reached 25%. So we feel that since there's non-negotiables that we agreed upon that they should take place before schools can open, since they are not in place, it would be unsafe for our members to return to schools or to offices.
Let's look at some of the processes that were discussed. You mentioned that some of the concerns had not been adhered to. In terms of protocol, what exactly had been outlined ahead of the teachers returning?
Do you remember on the 30th of April, the Basic Education Minister announced that school management teams would have to return to schools on the 11th of May, which is tomorrow, and teachers would return to schools on the 18th of May, and she committed that they would do all their best to ensure that the non-negotiables would be in place. Those non-negotiables included ensuring that schools are sanitized and they are disinfected, there's fumigation and disinfection of schools, and there's water where in schools where there were no water facilities, and there's provision of sanitizers and soaps. There's provision of everything to ensure that there's social distancing, and there's a provision of sanitization and ensuring of social distancing in terms of transportation of learners to schools. So when we spoke to our members, we found that very little has been done. That's why we are saying the disinfecting of schools has not even reached 25%. So it is not for SMTs and for teachers to ensure that or to put those things in place. They should go to schools when those things are to ensure that those things are there in place, that the disinfection has taken place or is there already. They shouldn't go to schools when those things, or to offices when those things are not there.
As government responded, and in the same breath, what does this ultimately mean for learning going forward in schools?
We are worried that it is taking so long for department to ensure that these things are in place, and we are saying since these things are not in place, we cannot see learning and teaching taking place under these circumstances. But for what was going to happen on Monday, it was going to be school management teams who were going to go to schools to ensure that these things are in place, and then a week after that, it would be teachers who were going to go to see that everything is in place so that proper teaching can start when schools are supposed to start on the 1st. But they cannot go even on Monday. They cannot go when these things are not in place. When places of learning or places of work are not disinfected or are not fumigated, because they may be putting their lives in danger.
Nomusa, at this critical juncture, unprecedented times as well, I mean, for teachers to return, what are some of the deadlines that you're issuing to government, even management at large, to ensure that upon teachers' return, the processes and procedures have been put in place? I mean, what ultimately are you calling for, and what is the deadline?
We had agreed, and the department had committed that they would ensure that all those non-negotiables, such as the fumigation and disinfection of schools and offices, were to happen at least two weeks before schools or offices happen. So now SMTs or school management teams are supposed to return to schools tomorrow. And these things are not in place. They should have taken place at least, they should have happened or put in place at least 2 weeks before any members of staff would return to their bases of work.
All right, Nomusa Cembi, let's see, with the spokesperson of SADTU, just updating us on SADTU members not returning to class on Monday, as all the procedures and demands had not been met upon teachers' return.